Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So today in the studio, I've got Stephen McIntosh. He is the CIO of the SUI Holding Group. And thank you for being with us today, Stephen.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So Stephen, when we talk about tokenizing fund, let's launch straight into the tokenization story. And we're talking about tokenizing funds in Abu Dhabi, especially in private equity, private credit funds. What do those tokenized funds actually mean in practice? And how does it help the fund managers that are running those strategies?
Yeah, sure. I think the best way to answer that question is with a really clear example. So I am the CIO of SUI Group Holdings and also the co-founder of Heritage, which is a proprietary investment business. And one of our portfolio companies is registered here in Abu Dhabi. And that company is called Kayo, and they are a tokenization platform. And they have some really great announcements recently in the region. So they have a partnership with First Abu Dhabi Bank. But most importantly, they are now tokenizing one of Mubadala's credit funds, which is a $4 billion fund. And the way it will work is that it allows users to subscribe for only $100 minimum. And you can subscribe using stablecoins. So it's all about broadening access. You do have to be an accredited investor. But what's interesting is that you can get essentially collateral against those tokenized fund units to be used elsewhere through a neobank in DeFi. And we also think that it's about providing access to liquidity sooner. So by using a secondary liquidity venue such as Fission, an individual who has a tokenized fund unit can get redemptions before the quarterly redemption window. And then they could use that capital to potentially allocate to the SpaceX IPO, et cetera. So we see it all about broadening access, increasing dynamic portability of tokenized fund units, and really, really importantly, expanding the reach here in the region.
It's so interesting as well to sort of see sovereign linked capital really sort of chasing this innovation. Do you think this is really positioning Abu Dhabi to be a global hub for real world asset tokenization? Are they ahead of the curve when it comes to this technology and adopting this for traditional markets?
I think many, exchanges, blockchains have sought out ADGM as a place to domicile and to partner with because it's so forward-thinking as a regulatory environment. I think the US now is going through, extremely exciting catch-up trade on crypto, but they really probably squandered many years under the previous administration, whereas regions like the UAE and specifically in ADGM, they made strides ahead. And so when you look at the activity of exchanges like Coinbase purchasing Deribit coming to the region, what Binance has done with actually allowing spot equities to be traded in the exchange recently. There's a lot of innovation happening here. And I do think that, a consecutive Abu Dhabi Finance Weeks year on year, you see that excitement manifested really in the people that turn up.
I mean, it's so exciting to see all these technologies come together and ADGM sort of be a hub to house all this innovation. But just talking a little bit about the SUI ETF that's listed on the NASDAQ, that's obviously a public markets access vehicle for acquiring SUI, but also staking SUI. So it's pretty innovative. I think SUI may be one of the lesser known mainstream crypto tokens. Everybody knows Bitcoin, Ethereum, and maybe Solana, but I feel SUI is kind of breaking through in terms of positioning itself as one of the major cryptos. So how do you see, and what was the rationale behind listing that, in creating that SUI ETF? And do you see yourselves maybe listing on the ADX, bringing that ETF over to the ADX in the near future?
Yeah, so SUI is one of the most exciting blockchain networks. They were originally with a team from Facebook, which is now Meta. And Mark Zuckerberg hired the world's best distributed systems engineers and cryptographers prior to 2020, really, to build a blockchain network and a stablecoin initiative that will be rolled out to 3 billion users. It was called Libre and Dian, most famously, and it was shut down by the previous administration, and there was a whole kind of story there. But the great thing is that this team spun out and they created SUI, which is a high-performance, low-latency blockchain infrastructure that can handle, millions of transactions per second, because the more machines you throw at the kind of validator level and the hardware level, it scales horizontally, which is really exciting. And it also has this very unique attribute being an object-centric blockchain architecture, which designed around the Move programming language, which was invented by the CTO of SUI, Sam Blackshear at Facebook. And this blockchain has really, been one of the most exciting to track. We were an early investor through Caritage, and we have a great relationship with the foundation and the management team. And they partnered with us to essentially take hold of a public company. So the company was originally called Mill City Ventures on NASDAQ. We anchored Caritage, a $450 million PIPE transaction, to convert this business into a SUI digital asset treasury vehicle. And since we launched the business, we've acquired 108 million SUI tokens, which is about 2.7% of the network. We continue to purchase SUI in a accretive manner that's kind of valuable for our shareholders. And yeah, there has been a proliferation of ETFs around the SUI blockchain now, with Grayscale and 21 Shares bringing public market access to the blockchain. And for us, we think that in the future there will be a handful of high performance blockchains that really matter: Solana, SUI, Ethereum, Hyperliquid, and then I think there's the rest. And we wanted to make sure that SUI was definitely in that.
And bringing that innovation, bringing the ETF to mainstream investors, right? Having them listed on national stock exchanges. Let's just finish on agentic finance, AI. I know that you're a very active investor in the AI space. You've set up your base in Abu Dhabi to look at research and developments in that next wave of AI-driven finance. What is the most exciting thing you're seeing in the space today?
I think, clearly it's the amount of capital going into AI. And this region has been, famous for its sponsorship of the AI trade, whether it's data centers, whether it's, Anthropic and OpenAI. Prior to becoming an investor, I actually ran an artificial intelligence business that was launched at the UCL AI Research Lab with DeepMind. And we eventually sold that company to an IC-listed acquirer. And back then, access to capital was hard. Now access to capital is incredible. And it's one of the reasons why we think, in terms of SUI Group Holdings, to your previous question, we have looked at potentially a dual listing here on the ADX. We'd like to broaden access to our business, but in terms of AI specifically, we continue to invest in some of the most exciting companies. We've invested recently through SUI Group Holdings in Recursive, which is discount from DeepMind, and N of One, the agentic trading platform based in open-endedness research.
Amazing. So, Stephen, that was fascinating discussion. Thank you for joining us. We're going to take a short break and then we'll be back soon. Thank you.